Bob Lazar's container of souls wasn't wrong, it was incomplete. For nearly a century, we've tried to understand the phenomenon the same way, as technology, as engineering, as something built, flown and powered. But frequency and fall begins with a different suggestion. What if the mistake wasn't in the data, but in the category? What if the anomaly isn't the craft, but the interface it requires? There's one phrase, widely mocked, rarely examined, that points directly at that idea. Humans as containers, sometimes remembered as containers of souls. It sounds wrong, but sometimes things sound wrong because they're being heard with the wrong assumptions. In the late 1980s, Bob Lazar claimed he worked on recovered craft. Whether you believe his account or not is almost beside the point here, because buried in his story wasn't a technical claim, it was a categorical one. Lazar said that in one briefing, humans were described not as pilots, not as equals, not even as targets, but as containers. He didn't elaborate, he didn't explain it, he didn't defend it, he just repeated the phrase and moved on. That's part of why it lingered. Engineers don't usually speak in metaphors. When they do, it's because they lack a better term. Let's be honest, the phrase containers of souls sounds dismissive. It sounds like we're being reduced to storage units, empty shells holding something more important. But that reaction depends entirely on how you define the word container. In engineering, a container is not passive. A submarine hull doesn't navigate, but without it, the crew dies instantly. A server rack doesn't compute, but it determines what computation can exist. A spacesuit doesn't think, but without it, intelligence doesn't survive vacuum. Containers are not lesser systems. They are boundary conditions. They define where reality can function at all. This is where frequency and fall becomes essential. The document reframes the soul not as theology, but as function, a non-material organizing principle that allows consciousness to operate inside matter. In that framework, the soul is not decoration, it's an interface layer. And once you think in those terms, Lazar's phrase stops sounding mystical and starts sounding technical. If an intelligence cannot fully exist in our physical reality, if gravity, time, and entropy tear it apart, then it would require a stabilizing interface, something that can exist in matter without collapsing. What's often overlooked is that Lazar didn't invent this idea. He translated it. Long before UFOS, humans were already grappling with the same role, using different language. Paul the Apostle described humans as jars of clay, fragile vessels carrying something that doesn't originate in matter. Plato described the body as a temporary housing for the soul, constrained by physical reality. Carl Jung warned that unconscious forces don't visit the psyche, they inhabit it. Different centuries, different disciplines, same functional description, humans as the place where something non-material appears. Frequency and fall argues that the phenomenon cannot fully manifest in space-time without collapse. That explains why craft behave strangely, why bodies look engineered and incomplete, why encounters alter consciousness more than environment. It also explains why influence is preferred to invasion. A system that cannot stabilize itself must borrow stability. Machines can't do this well. Synthetic biology barely can. Craft fail catastrophically. Humans don't. We fracture and recover. That matters. But here's where Lazar's phrase becomes misleading. Calling humans containers implies replaceability. Frequency and fall makes the opposite case. Humans are unique not because they never fall into incoherence, but because they can return from it. Trauma can shatter identity, fear can collapse perception, obsession can narrow meaning, and yet coherence can be restored. That's not a storage unit. That's a self-stabilizing interface, something you can't simply manufacture. Modern UAP researchers circle the same conclusion from different directions. Jacques Vallée argues the phenomenon adapts to belief systems and consciousness rather than behaving like explorers. John Keel described humans as biological receivers for non-human intelligence. Diana Walsh-Pasulka documents encounters that transform identity rather than provide information. None of them rely on Lazar, yet all of them describe humans as interfaces, not spectators. So if Lazar's phrase were rewritten using the clarity frequency and fall provides, it wouldn't say, humans are containers of souls. It would say humans are the only known interface capable of holding coherence across incompatible states. That's not spiritual language. That's architecture. We're not the cargo, we're the bridge. The unsettling part of this idea isn't that one man said it, it's that the same idea keeps reappearing across religion, philosophy, psychology, and modern UAP research. Lazar didn't invent it. He stripped it of meaning. Frequency and fall restores the meaning, not to frighten us, but to explain why the phenomenon may depend on us more than we depend on it.